I'm healed now. Ready to fix us and be your wife again. I read that text 3 times. Not because I didn't understand it, but because I wanted to feel something. Anger, maybe relief. Even sadness would have been acceptable. But sitting in my kitchen in Louisville, Kentucky, with my coffee going cold, all I felt was confirmation. Confirmation that Bethany hadn't changed at all. Hello, family. Welcome back. Before we begin, I have a small but heartfelt request. Please subscribe this channel. Your support is what keeps these stories alive. Every time you click that button, you're helping us share voices that would otherwise be forgotten and stories that deserve to be heard. And in the comments, tell us where you're watching from. Because together, we are not just telling stories. We are keeping hope alive. My name's Elijah. I'm 35 years old and I work as a project manager for Ironwood Forge, a metal fabrication company on the outskirts of the city. I've been with them for 8 years now, moving up from the shop floor to overseeing production timelines. It's steady work, honest work, the kind of job where you clock in, solve problems, and clock out knowing you did something real. Bethany left 11 months ago. Not officially at first, she called it taking space. But space turned into silence. Silence turned into rumors, and rumors turned into facts I couldn't ignore anymore. She needed to find herself, she said. What she found instead was a string of men, each one promising something I apparently couldn't give her. Adventure, excitement, freedom from the responsibilities she signed up for when she said, "I do." I filed for divorce 4 months after she disappeared. She didn't contest it, barely even acknowledged the papers, just signed her name and sent them back like she was canceling a magazine subscription. That told me everything I needed to know about where I stood in her priorities. The text came through on a Tuesday evening just as I was finishing dinner. I'd made grilled chicken and roasted vegetables. Nothing fancy, but it was mine, my kitchen, my routine, my peace. I set the phone down without responding. 11 months. She'd been gone 11 months and now she wanted to waltz back and like time was just something that happened to other people. Like the damage she caused had an expiration date. I thought about calling my buddy Connor. He'd been with me through the worst of it. The nights I couldn't sleep. The days I couldn't focus. The slow process of rebuilding a life I never expected to rebuild. But I didn't call him. There was nothing to discuss. Bethy's text wasn't a question, and I wasn't going to treat it like one. Instead, I finished my dinner, washed the dishes, sat on my back porch, and watched the sun go down over the neighborhood I bought into 3 years ago, back when I thought I was building something permanent. The thing about silence is that it says exactly what you needed to say. So, I let it speak for me. The memories came whether I wanted them or not. I thought about the first time she disappeared for a weekend without telling me where she was going. She came back smelling like cigarettes and someone else's cologne, but she had an explanation ready. A friend's birthday in Cincinnati. Too much wine. Lost track of her phone. I believed her because believing her was easier than facing what the alternative meant. That was 2 years into our marriage. We'd been together for 5 years total at that point. Met at a bowling alley of all places. Her league played right before mine. She was loud and funny and full of energy, and I was drawn to her like a moth to a porch light. I should have paid more attention to how many other moths were circling the same flame. The excuses piled up after that first disappearance, work conferences that didn't exist, visits to her sister, who later told me she hadn't seen Bethany in months, girls' nights that stretched into girls' weekends. Each time I told myself it was temporary, stress, a phase, something we'd work through together. But you can't work through something when only one person is holding the tools. My mom tried to warn me. She never said it directly. That wasn't her style, but I caught the look she gave Bethany at family dinners. The way she'd squeezed my hand a little tighter when she said goodbye. After Bethany left, my mom just said, "Some people take more than they give, son." Now you know which kind she was. The nights were the hardest at first. Our bed felt too big. The silence in the house felt too loud. I'd wake up at 3 a.m. reaching for someone who wasn't there. And the absence would hit me all over again. But absence has a way of becoming familiar. Weeks turned into months. I started sleeping through the night again. Started cooking meals I actually enjoyed instead of compromising on what she wanted. Started watching movies she hated, reading books she mocked, living a life that was entirely and unapologetically mine. Her absence, which had felt like a wound at first, eventually became peace. I heard things through mutual acquaintances. She'd been with a guy named Derek for a while, some personal trainer from Indianapolis. That ended badly. Then there was someone from her workplace, a pharmaceutical sales rep. That lasted longer but ended worse. The pattern was always the same. Bethany chasing something shinier than wondering why the shine never lasted. 11 months later, the shine had apparently worn off everything else. And here she was texting me like I was a backup plan she'd left in storage. I didn't respond to her text that night, or the next morning, or the day after that. She sent 2 more messages during that time. The first one said, "I know you're hurt, but please just talk to me." The second said, "I've changed, Elijah. I really have. Just give me a chance to prove it." I read them both, then put my phone away and went to work. The thing about Bethany was that she always believed words were enough. Like saying, "I'm sorry," erased what she was sorry for. Like promising to change was the same as actually changing. She'd been doing it our entire relationship, talking her way out of accountability, making just enough noise to distract from the damage she left behind. But I wasn't the same man she'd abandoned. 11 months had taught me that silence was louder than any argument, that walking away was sometimes the strongest statement you could make, that letting go didn't mean forgetting. It meant refusing to let someone else's chaos control your peace. So, I stayed silent, not out of spite, but out of self-respect. I'd been seeing someone new for about 4 months by then. Her name was Audrey. We met at a hardware store of all places. I was looking for a replacement part for my garage door opener, and she was debating between 2 different shades of exterior paint for her rental property. We got to talking in the paint aisle, and something about her just felt easy, comfortable. She wasn't trying to impress me, and I wasn't trying to impress her. We were just 2 people having a conversation. Our first date was coffee at a place downtown. Second date was dinner at a barbecue joint she loved. Third date was a walk along the Ohio River, talking until the sun went down and the city lights came up. She was a physical therapist who'd moved to Louisville from Nashville 3 years prior. Divorced once, no kids, absolutely zero interest in playing games. "I'm too old for that nonsense," she told me on our 4th date. "If we're not being honest with each other, what's the point?" I appreciated that more than she probably knew. Audrey didn't know about Bethy's text. I hadn't mentioned it because there was nothing to mention. An ex reaching out didn't change anything about my present. It was noise from a chapter I'd already closed. But some part of me knew Bethany wouldn't accept silence as an answer. She'd show up eventually. She always did. Not because she missed me, but because she couldn't stand the idea of being rejected. Her ego wouldn't allow it. So I waited, not with anxiety, but with a calm certainty that whatever came next, I was ready for it. The man she left wouldn't have been ready. But the man she was about to find had learned something crucial in her absence. His peace wasn't negotiable anymore. She showed up on a Thursday evening just after 7 p.m. I was in the kitchen making stir-fry when the doorbell camera chimed on my phone. I looked at the screen and there she was, Bethany, standing on my front porch in a dress I didn't recognize, hair done up like she was going to a wedding. She had a bottle of wine in one hand and that same practiced smile she always wore when she wanted something. Audrey was sitting at the kitchen island scrolling through her phone. She looked up when she saw me freeze. "Everything okay?" she asked. I showed her the screen. "My ex-wife." Audrey's eyebrows rose, but she didn't panic, didn't demand an explanation. She just nodded slowly and said, "The one who texted you last week?" "Same one." "You didn't tell her about me?" "Didn't tell her anything. Haven't responded at all." Audrey considered this for a moment. Then, with the kind of calm that had drawn me to her in the first place, she asked, "What do you want to do?" That question mattered more than she probably realized. Not what should you do or what are you going to do about this, but what do you want? She was giving me space to decide for myself without judgment or pressure. I watched Bethany on the camera. She rang the bell again, then checked her reflection in the window beside the door. Same old Bethany. Performative down to her bones. "I don't want to talk to her," I said finally. "But she's not going to leave until someone answers." Audrey set her phone down. "Want me to get it?" I almost said no. Protective instinct, maybe. The male urge to shield the people you care about from the people who hurt you. But Audrey wasn't asking for permission to fight my battles. She was offering to be present, to stand beside me in a way Bethany never had. "You sure?" I asked. "I'm sure." She slid off the stool and adjusted the hoodie she was wearing, one of mine, a faded gray thing from a company's softball tournament years ago. "She's going to find out about me eventually. Might as well be now." I nodded. "I'll stay in here. Watch through the camera." Audrey walked toward the front door and I turned back to the stove, pretending to focus on dinner while my phone showed me everything happening at the entrance. Bethany was smoothing her dress when the door opened. She clearly rehearsed something. I could see her mouth start to form words before she even registered who was standing in front of her. Then she saw Audrey. It was like watching a computer crash in real time. Bethy's prepared smile faltered. Her eyes went wide. She looked past Audrey, trying to see into the house, then back at the woman in my hoodie. "Can I help you?" Audrey asked, her voice polite but firm. Bethy's mouth opened and closed. I'm looking for Elijah. This is his house." "I know whose house it is," Audrey said. "He's busy right now. Can I take a message?" The silence that followed was worth every second of the 11 months I'd spent rebuilding my life. I watched through the camera as Bethy's face cycled through emotions she couldn't control. Confusion came first. She genuinely hadn't expected anyone other than me to answer that door. In her mind, I was still sitting alone in this house, pining for her return, waiting like a loyal dog for its owner to come home. The sight of another woman, comfortable, relaxed, wearing my clothes, short-circuited that entire narrative. Then came the anger. I saw it flash across her features, quick and hot. Her jaw tightened. Her grip on the wine bottle shifted. She wasn't used to being caught off guard. Wasn't used to walking into situations she hadn't planned for, but she recovered quickly. That was one thing Bethany had always been good at, adaptation. She was a master of reading a room and adjusting her performance accordingly. "I'm Bethany," she said, forcing a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Elijah's wife." "Ex-wife," Audrey corrected gently. "He mentioned the divorce was finalized months ago." I couldn't see Bethy's reaction directly, but I could imagine it. The slight twitch at the corner of her mouth, the way her eyes would narrow just a fraction. She hated being corrected. Right, Bethany said slowly. Ex-wife. And you are, Audrey. I'm his girlfriend. That word landed exactly the way it should have. Girlfriend. Present tense. Current. Real. Bethy's composure cracked again. How long have you two been? A few months, Audrey said. Not that it's really any of your business. From my position in the kitchen, I felt something settle in my chest. Pride, maybe gratitude. Audrey wasn't being cruel, but she also wasn't backing down. She was holding space for both of us with a quiet strength that Bethany had never possessed. I thought about all the times I'd made excuses for Bethany. All the times I'd smoothed over her rudeness to my friends and family. All the times I'd convinced myself that her selfishness was just passion. Her manipulation, just communication. I'd spent years bending myself into shapes that made her comfortable, while she never once returned the favor. Audrey didn't ask me to bend. She met me where I was. I need to talk to Elijah, Bethany insisted. I drove all the way from, he knows you're here, Audrey interrupted. He chose not to come to the door. I think that tells you what you need to know. Through the camera, I watched Bethy's face go pale. Not from shock this time, from realization. She'd assumed that showing up in person would force my hand. That I'd open the door, see her standing there, and fall back into old patterns. That the power she'd always held over me was still intact. But I wasn't that man anymore. And she was standing on the porch of a house that no longer felt anything like the one she'd left. Just tell him I'm here, Bethany said, her voice smaller now. Please, I just want to explain. Audrey glanced back toward the kitchen even though she couldn't see me from the doorway. It was a gesture of respect, checking in without making a scene. I stayed where I was. That was my answer. Audrey turned back to Bethany. He's aware you're here and he's choosing not to engage. I'm sorry you drove all this way, but there's nothing else I can do for you. I expected Bethany to argue, to push past Audrey and storm into the house. To cause a scene the way she always did when things didn't go her way. But she didn't. She just stood there, wine bottle hanging at her side, looking at the doorway like it had personally betrayed her. 11 months, she said quietly. He couldn't even wait 11 months. Audrey's voice was steady. You left him. What did you expect him to do? I expected him to. Bethany stopped herself, swallowed. I expected him to understand that I needed time. Time for what exactly? That question hung in the air. Through the camera, I could see Bethany searching for an answer that would make her look sympathetic. An answer that reframed her departure as something noble, a journey of self-discovery rather than what it actually was. Running away from commitment to chase temporary highs. She couldn't find one. I made mistakes, she finally admitted. I know that, but I came back. I'm here now. Doesn't that count for something? That's not for me to say, Audrey replied. But showing up unannounced, expecting him to drop everything. That's not how you make amends. That's how you make demands. Bethy's mask slipped completely. I saw the real her, the version she kept hidden behind charm and calculated vulnerability. Her eyes went cold. Her posture stiffened. You don't know anything about our relationship, she snapped. You're right. I don't. All I know is the man he is now, and he's happy. He's peaceful. Whatever you two had, it wasn't giving him that. I turned off the stove and moved closer to the hallway, still watching through my phone. Part of me wanted to step in to have the final word, but I realized I didn't need to. Audrey wasn't fighting for me. She was standing with me. There's a difference. Bethany took a step back. The wine bottle shook slightly in her hand. This isn't over. He owes me a conversation. He doesn't owe you anything, Audrey said simply. But I'll tell him you said that. For a long moment, neither of them moved. Then Bethany turned and walked back toward her car. A sedan I didn't recognize, probably borrowed or rented. She didn't look back. Didn't try one more time. Just got in, started the engine, and drove away. Audrey closed the door and walked into the kitchen where I was standing. You okay? She asked. Yeah, I said. And I meant it. Thank you, she shrugged. Nothing to thank me for. She needed to know where things stand. Still, you didn't have to do that. Audrey stepped closer and wrapped her arms around my waist. I wanted to. You've built something good here, Elijah. Something real. She doesn't get to walk back in and pretend it doesn't exist. I held her for a long time. Outside, the street was quiet. The evening settled around us like a blanket. And somewhere in the distance, Bethany was driving away from a house she'd abandoned, finally understanding that the door she walked out of was closed for good. I didn't feel victorious, didn't feel vindicated. I just felt settled, like a stone that had been tossed around for years, finally finding the bottom of a river. Peace. That's what I felt. And for the first time in longer than I could remember, it wasn't fragile. Bethany came back one more time 3 weeks later on a Sunday afternoon. This time I answered the door myself. She looked different, thinner, tired. The polish she'd worn before was gone, replaced by something rawer. She'd been crying recently. I could see the redness around her eyes. I just need 5 minutes, she said. Please. I leaned against the doorframe. Say what you need to say. She took a breath. I messed up. I know that. I threw away something good because I was bored or scared or I don't even know anymore. I convinced myself there was something better out there. And when I found out there wasn't, I thought I could come back like nothing happened. You could have called, I said, months ago before the divorce was final, before I signed the papers and moved on. I know, but you didn't. No. Her voice cracked. I didn't. We stood in silence for a moment. The autumn air was cool, carrying the smell of fallen leaves and distant rain. I'm not angry at you anymore, I said finally. I was for a long time, but that passed. What didn't pass was the lesson you taught me. What lesson? That I deserve someone who chooses me every day, not someone who comes back when everything else falls apart. Bethany wiped her eyes. She didn't argue, didn't defend herself. For once, she just listened. I hope you find what you're looking for, I said. But it's not here. Not anymore. She nodded slowly. Goodbye, Elijah. Goodbye, Bethany. She walked back to her car. I watched her drive away and then I closed the door on that chapter of my life permanently. Audrey and I got engaged the following spring. Nothing elaborate, just a Saturday morning in my backyard with birds singing and coffee going cold between us. I asked, she said yes, and we both laughed at how simple it felt, how right. I heard about Bethany through mutual friends occasionally. She moved to another state, eventually tried the same patterns with new people. The last I heard, she was living alone, struggling to hold down a job, still chasing something she couldn't name. The consequences of her choices hadn't come in one dramatic moment. They came in the slow erosion of every relationship she touched. No stability, no roots, just a string of burned bridges and closed doors. I didn't take pleasure in her struggles, but I also didn't lose sleep over them. She'd made her choices. The results were hers to carry. My mom visited a few weeks after the engagement. She sat on my porch and looked at the garden Audrey had started planting along the fence line. Tomatoes, peppers, herbs, things that took time, things that needed tending. This is good, my mom said quietly. What you have now, it's real. I know, I said. She squeezed my hand the way she always did. I'm proud of you, son. Not everyone finds their way back to peace after someone tries to take it from them. That night, Audrey and I made dinner together. Nothing special, just grilled salmon and a salad from the vegetables we'd grown ourselves. We ate on the back porch, watching the fireflies drift through the darkening yard. I thought about the man I'd been 11 months before Bethy's text arrived. Lost, hurt, wondering if I'd ever feel whole again. Sometimes healing isn't about getting answers. It's about realizing you stopped needing them. Stay connected for further videos and subscribe this channel.